A successful businesswoman walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, expecting special treatment. What she gets instead is the most brutal wake-up call of her life. In just 18 minutes, Karen Whitfield interrupts America's most patient judge 11 times, each interruption digging her grave deeper, each word pushing her closer to catastrophe. This is the shocking story of what happens when entitlement collides with immovable justice, when privilege meets its match, and when someone who has spent 20 years talking over everyone finally encounters the one man who will not be silenced. By the time Judge Caprio finishes with her, Karen Whitfield will either be facing jail time or learning the hardest lesson of her life. Tuesday morning, 10:15 a.m. Providence Municipal Court, Rhode Island. Judge Frank Caprio, 77 years old, 4 decades on the bench, legendary for his compassion, reviews his morning docket with the practiced eye of someone who has seen every variation of human behavior the legal system can produce. Parking violations, minor traffic infractions, the mundane machinery of municipal justice grinding through another ordinary day. Then his eyes stop on one case file. Karen Whitfield, age 42, speeding 65, PH in a 35 mph school zone. But it's the officer's notes that make Judge Caprio pause. Extremely argumentative behavior. Refused to accept citation gracefully. Warned about courtroom conduct. In 40 years, Judge Caprio has perfected a Zen-like patience that borders on supernatural. He's handled violent defendants, grieving families, desperate immigrants, and every personality type the human condition can produce. He's maintained order while showing mercy. He's balanced justice with compassion so skillfully that his courtroom has become famous across America. Today, that legendary patience will be tested like never before. The gallery holds about 20 people awaiting their own judgments. Mrs. Rodriguez, a grandmother clutching parking ticket paperwork with trembling hands. 3 college students whispering nervously about noise violations, their futures hanging on judicial mercy. Officer Thompson, who wrote Karen's speeding ticket, sits in the back row with the concerned expression of someone who knows what's coming. The court stenographer, Janet Mills, 30 years of transcribing courtroom drama, adjusts her equipment and glances at the docket. Her experienced eyes recognize the warning signs. This won't be routine. At precisely 10:20 a.m., the bailiff's voice rings out. Case number 4782, The People versus Karen Whitfield. Through the courtroom doors strides a woman who walks like she owns the building. Expensive business suit, tailored, pressed, screaming success, designer handbag, the kind that costs more than most defendants' monthly rent. Blonde hair styled to perfection, makeup flawless, every detail projecting power, control, dominance. But it's her expression that tells the real story: impatience, irritation, the unmistakable look of someone who has somewhere far more important to be. Karen Whitfield owns a successful real estate agency on Providence's upscale East Side. For 15 years, she's built an empire on aggressive negotiation tactics, talking over clients and competitors alike, overwhelming opposition through sheer verbal force. In her world, the loudest voice wins. Persistence defeats resistance. Backing down equals weakness. She approaches problems like a bulldozer, relentless, unstoppable, crushing obstacles beneath her momentum. But Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom isn't a real estate closing, and judicial authority doesn't negotiate. Judge Caprio's voice carries the calm dignity of his office, refined over decades of maintaining order in chaos. Good morning, Ms. Whitfield. You're here regarding a speeding citation issued on Elmwood Avenue. Your Honor, I need to explain something right away. The interruption lands like a slap across the courtroom's face. Karen doesn't wait for permission, doesn't pause for acknowledgement, doesn't even let Judge Caprio finish his introduction. That speed limit sign is completely hidden by tree branches. The city hasn't maintained proper visibility, and Judge Caprio's expression shifts almost imperceptibly. Those who know him, the court staff, the regular attorneys, recognize the subtle tightening around his eyes, the first warning sign that his legendary patience is being tested. Ms. Whitfield, I understand you have concerns, but if you would please... Your Honor, I pay substantial property taxes in this city, over $18,000 annually. Karen's voice rises with each word, gaining momentum like a runaway train. I think that gives me the right to expect properly maintained traffic signage that doesn't create hazardous conditions for law-abiding citizens who, ma'am, you need to, are simply trying to conduct business efficiently in a city that should be supporting local entrepreneurs rather than creating bureaucratic obstacles through poorly designed traffic enforcement that clearly prioritizes revenue generation over. The court stenographer stops typing mid-word and looks up, stunned. Officer Thompson shakes his head slowly, recognizing the train wreck in slow motion. Mrs. Rodriguez clutches her purse tighter, embarrassed by the spectacle. The college students exchange wide-eyed glances that say, "Is this really happening?" Judge Caprio sets down his paperwork with deliberate precision, a gesture that veteran court watchers know means his patience reservoir is rapidly depleting. Ms. Whitfield, I'm going to need you to... Your Honor, I've been researching municipal traffic law, and I believe there are constitutional questions about due process when... Stop! The single word detonates like a thunderclap in the confined space. The sheer force of judicial authority behind it creates a physical pressure that seems to compress the air itself. Karen actually steps backward, genuinely shocked that someone has interrupted her. For perhaps the first time in years, her verbal assault has been stopped mid-sentence by an immovable force. Judge Frank Caprio stands slowly. His 77-year-old frame somehow fills the courtroom, carrying the accumulated weight of 40 years of judicial authority. Every eye locks on him. Every whisper dies instantly. Even the ventilation system seems to quiet in respect. Ms. Whitfield. His voice drops to a level that somehow commands more attention than any shout could achieve. You have been in my courtroom for exactly 4 minutes, and in that time, you have interrupted me 7 times. The number hangs in the air like an accusation carved in stone. This behavior is unacceptable. Karen's eyes flash with indignation, the instinctive response of someone who has never been told no, in a way she couldn't talk around. Your Honor, I was simply trying to explain the circumstances surrounding 8 times. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through her words like a blade through tissue paper. You just did it again. Karen opens her mouth to respond, but something in Judge Caprio's raised hand and steel-hard expression finally penetrates her consciousness. For the first time, genuine uncertainty flickers across her face. In my courtroom, there is an order of proceedings. Each word lands with the weight of law itself. I speak, you listen. I ask questions, you answer them. I do not ask for lengthy dissertations on traffic engineering, property tax rates, or your opinions about municipal governance. Karen's face flushes crimson, a combination of embarrassment, anger, and the unfamiliar sensation of being challenged by someone she cannot overwhelm. 20 years of running meetings, dominating negotiations, and crushing opposition with rapid-fire verbal assault have left her completely unprepared for someone who cannot be talked over, worn down, or intimidated into submission. Your Honor, I have a right to defend myself against charges that are clearly 9 times. Judge Caprio's voice somehow grows quieter and more powerful simultaneously. Ms. Whitfield, you seem incapable of understanding that this is not a business meeting where the loudest voice wins. This is a court of law where respect for process and authority determines how we proceed. But Karen's business instincts kick in with the force of 20 years conditioning. In real estate negotiations, persistence wins. Refusing to back down eventually wears opponents into submission. Verbal dominance equals victory. She decides to apply the same strategy to Judge Caprio, a decision that will prove catastrophic. Your Honor, with all due respect, I think you're being unnecessarily rigid about procedural formalities when the real issue here is municipal negligence in traffic sign maintenance that creates significant liability exposure for the city. And Judge Caprio's voice drops to a register that somehow fills every corner of the courtroom despite barely rising above a whisper. Ms. Whitfield, you have now interrupted me 9 times. Your behavior is showing contempt for this court, disrespect for the judicial process, and complete disregard for basic courtroom decorum. But, Your Honor, 10 times. The words fall like a guillotine blade. The courtroom sits in absolute, breathless silence. Officer Thompson looks genuinely concerned, as if watching someone walk unknowingly toward a cliff edge. The stenographer types frantically, fingers flying to capture this unprecedented exchange. Karen's face burns bright red now, equal parts embarrassment and rage that someone dares to treat her this way, dares to silence her, dares to suggest her voice doesn't deserve to be heard immediately and completely. Your Honor, I'm simply trying to present a defense against what I believe to be an unjust citation, based on municipal failures that... Judge Caprio removes his glasses with agonizing slowness. He cleans them methodically, each movement deliberate, allowing tension to build like pressure behind a dam. When he looks up, his stare carries the accumulated authority of 4 decades dispensing justice. Ms. Whitfield, let me explain something to you about respect and authority. Karen finally falls silent, though her expression suggests she's merely reloading for another verbal assault, rather than genuinely listening. In your business, you may be accustomed to talking over people, dominating conversations, and wearing down opposition through verbal persistence. Judge Caprio's words carry the weight of diagnosis, dissecting Karen's behavior with surgical precision. That behavior ends at the door of my courtroom. He walks around from behind his bench, something he rarely does, positioning himself where Karen cannot avoid direct eye contact, cannot escape into the comfortable distance that allows her to treat him as an obstacle rather than an authority. You came into my courtroom today believing that your normal tactics would work here. You thought you could overwhelm me with rapid-fire explanations, challenge my authority through sheer persistence, and essentially bully your way to the outcome you wanted. The analysis cuts deeper than any raised voice could. Karen stands frozen, recognizing herself in his words, with the uncomfortable shock of seeing yourself unexpectedly in a mirror. But here's what you fail to understand, Ms. Whitfield. Judge Caprio's voice carries both authority and something approaching paternal disappointment. This courtroom operates on respect. Respect for the law, respect for the process, and respect for the person sitting in this chair. He gestures to the bench, the symbol of judicial authority that has stood for centuries as the barrier between civilization and chaos. When you interrupt me, you're not just being rude to Frank Caprio. You're showing contempt for the very system of justice that protects your rights, your property, and your ability to conduct business in a civilized society. Judge Frank Caprio returns to his bench, but his presence seems to have expanded to fill the entire courtroom. Karen stands before him, for perhaps the first time in years, truly speechless, not calculating her next verbal move, but genuinely shocked into silence. Ms. Whitfield, your original citation was for speeding in a school zone. The fine was $185 plus court costs of $50. His voice carries the matter-of-fact tone of simple arithmetic, a straightforward matter that should have taken 3 minutes to resolve. Karen's hands fidget with her designer handbag, expensive leather suddenly feeling inadequate, her usual armor of success stripped away to reveal vulnerability underneath. Instead, your behavior this morning has created a much more serious situation. Judge Caprio lets the words settle like sediment in still water. Your repeated interruptions, your argumentative demeanor, and your fundamental disrespect for this court's procedures constitute contempt of court. The phrase hits Karen like ice water in the face. Contempt of court. Not a traffic fine. Not a business setback. A criminal charge. In her world, aggressive behavior is rewarded with lucrative deals. Talking over people is standard operating procedure. Refusing to back down is considered strength, determination, the mark of a winner. But this isn't a real estate closing. This is the American legal system, and she's just discovered it has teeth. Your Honor, I certainly didn't intend any disrespect. I was simply 11 times. Judge Caprio's voice carries the finality of a door slamming shut. Ms. Whitfield, criminal contempt of court is punishable by up to 6 months in jail and fines up to $1,000. Your behavior this morning has elevated a simple traffic violation into a potential criminal matter. For the first time, the very first time since she walked through those courtroom doors, radiating confidence and entitlement, Karen looks genuinely frightened. Her world of aggressive negotiation and verbal domination has no precedent for consequences that cannot be talked away, deals that cannot be negotiated, opponents who cannot be worn down. Furthermore, Judge Caprio continues, each word landing like a hammer blow. Your complete inability to show basic respect in a courtroom raises serious questions about your character that could affect your real estate license. The Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation takes professional conduct very seriously. Karen's face drains of color so rapidly she appears to age 10 years in 10 seconds. Her real estate license represents 15 years of grinding work, relationship building, deal-making. It's her identity, her income, her proof of success in a competitive world. And she's just realized she might lose it because she couldn't shut up for 3 minutes. Your Honor, surely you can't. Judge Caprio's look, not a word, just a look, stops her mid-sentence. Finally, she's learning to read the room, to recognize that she's standing at the edge of a cliff, and one more step means catastrophe. Ms. Whitfield, I want you to understand something. His voice softens slightly, but the authority remains absolute. Your behavior this morning isn't just about disrespecting me personally. You've shown contempt for a system of justice that depends on mutual respect and orderly procedure. He gestures toward the gallery, where Mrs. Rodriguez, the college students, and other defendants have been watching this masterclass in consequences. Every person in this courtroom today has shown more respect for this process than you have. Mrs. Rodriguez, who struggles with English and faces real financial hardship from a parking fine. Those college students who made a mistake and came here willing to accept responsibility. Even Officer Thompson, who could have escalated your traffic stop into something far more serious, but chose restraint. The comparison stings because it's accurate. Karen has been shown up in grace and dignity by people she would normally consider beneath her attention. In your business dealings, Ms. Whitfield, you may have learned that the loudest voice gets heard first, that interrupting and dominating conversation leads to success. Judge Caprio leans forward, his presence commanding absolute attention. But there are places in our society where those tactics don't just fail. They create serious consequences. Karen nods slightly, the first genuine acknowledgement she's made that she might be wrong about something. This courtroom is one of those places. Here, respect is not negotiable. Order is not optional. And authority is not subject to your approval or your aggressive negotiation tactics? Judge Frank Caprio sits back in his chair, and his expression shifts, stern authority gradually giving way to something approaching paternal concern. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable to everyone watching. Ms. Whitfield, I'm going to do something I rarely do. I'm going to give you a choice about how we proceed. Karen looks up with cautious hope flickering in her eyes. But Judge Caprio's expression makes instantly clear this isn't the negotiation she's hoping for, isn't an opening for her to talk her way out of consequences. Choice 1. I find you in criminal contempt of court. You pay maximum fines, face possible jail time, and deal with the professional consequences to your real estate license. He pauses, letting the weight settle. Your behavior today has certainly justified that outcome. Karen's face goes pale again, the color draining as she contemplates 6 months in jail. Professional ruin, the complete destruction of the life she's built through those same aggressive tactics that have brought her to this precipice. Choice 2. You demonstrate that you're capable of learning from this experience. Judge Caprio's voice carries both authority and unexpected compassion. But that choice comes with conditions that are not negotiable, not subject to discussion, and not open to your interpretation. Karen opens her mouth reflexively. 20 years of habit preparing to argue, negotiate, push back against terms she doesn't like. But this time, she catches herself. Her mouth closes. She simply nods. Progress. If you choose the second option, you will spend the next hour in this courtroom observing how other cases are handled. You will watch how respectful defendants interact with this court. You will see how order and mutual respect create an environment where justice can actually function. Judge Caprio stands, walking to the front of his bench again, not to intimidate this time, but to make absolutely certain Karen understands the opportunity he's offering. During that hour, you will not speak unless directly asked a question. You will observe how effective communication happens when people listen more than they talk, when they respect process more than they push their agenda, when they treat authority with the dignity it deserves. The conditions continue, each one stripping away another layer of Karen's control. After observing other cases, you will return to address your original speeding citation. At that time, you will demonstrate, through your behavior, not your words, that you understand how proper courtroom conduct works. Judge Caprio's voice drops to a more intimate register, speaking directly to Karen rather than addressing the courtroom generally. But here's what I really want you to understand, Ms. Whitfield. Your behavior today isn't just about courtroom etiquette. It's about fundamental respect for other people and the processes that hold our society together. He gestures toward Mrs. Rodriguez, still waiting patiently for her case, embodying the dignity and respect Karen has failed to show. Mrs. Rodriguez hasn't interrupted anyone today. She hasn't demanded special treatment based on her tax payments or her business success. She hasn't tried to overwhelm this court with verbal aggression. She's shown the same respect for this process that she would want shown to her. The comparison lands with devastating accuracy. A wealthy, successful businesswoman being shown up in character by an elderly woman on a fixed income facing a parking fine. So here's your choice, Ms. Whitfield. Judge Caprio's words carry the weight of a life-changing decision. You can continue to believe that aggressive behavior and verbal domination represent strength and effectiveness. In that case, I'll treat you as someone who chooses conflict over cooperation, and you'll face the full consequences of contempt of court. Karen shakes her head slightly, the first genuine sign of humility she's shown since walking through the courtroom doors. Or you can accept that there are places in our society where listening matters more than talking, where respect matters more than aggression, and where understanding others' perspectives creates better outcomes than drowning them out with your own voice. Judge Caprio returns to his bench, his question hanging in the air like a sword suspended by thread. What's your choice, Ms. Whitfield? Karen takes a deep breath, perhaps the first genuine breath she's taken since arriving. The first moment she stopped calculating and started actually feeling the gravity of her situation. When she speaks, her voice is quiet, respectful, stripped of the aggressive edge that has defined her professional persona for 2 decades. Your Honor, I choose to learn. I want to observe how this court functions. Judge Caprio nods approvingly, recognizing genuine capitulation, authentic willingness to change, rather than calculated performance. Ms. Whitfield, please take a seat in the back row. For the next hour, you will observe without comment how respectful interaction with this court actually functions. Karen walks to the back of the courtroom, her designer heels clicking softly on the floor. Each step a journey from entitlement toward humility, from dominance toward respect. For perhaps the first time in years, she's about to listen more than she speaks. And what she witnesses will change everything. Mrs. Rodriguez, please approach the bench. The elderly woman stands nervously, clutching her parking ticket with trembling hands that speak of age, anxiety, and the genuine fear of consequences she cannot afford. Karen watches from the back row as Mrs. Rodriguez walks respectfully to the front of the courtroom. No aggressive posture, no presumptuous familiarity, just simple human dignity in the face of authority. Good morning, Your Honor. Mrs. Rodriguez's accented English carries the musical lilt of Spanish underneath. I am here about parking ticket. Judge Caprio's entire demeanor transforms. The stern authority that faced Karen melting into warmth, patience, genuine interest in this woman's situation. The contrast is stark, devastating in its clarity, about how respect begets respect. Tell me what happened, Mrs. Rodriguez. Your Honor, I park in front of my daughter's house to help with new baby. I stay too long in 2-hour parking zone. I know I break rule, but baby was crying and daughter needed help. I try to be good neighbor, but I forget time. Karen leans forward despite herself, fascinated by the stark difference between how she approached her situation and how Mrs. Rodriguez handles hers. No excuses, no blame shifting, no aggressive demands for special treatment, just honesty. Simple, devastating honesty. Mrs. Rodriguez, how much was the fine? $75, Your Honor. It is hard for me because I am on fixed income, but I know I did wrong. I accept responsibility. Judge Caprio considers for a moment, and Karen watches as he weighs justice against mercy, law against compassion, procedure against humanity. Mrs. Rodriguez, you took responsibility for your mistake. You showed respect for this court, and you explained your circumstances clearly and honestly, without making excuses or demanding special consideration. He pauses, looking at the citation one more time. Fine reduced to $25, payable within 60 days. And congratulations on becoming a grandmother. Mrs. Rodriguez's face lights up with gratitude, so pure it seems to illuminate the courtroom. Thank you, Your Honor. You are very kind. God bless you. As Mrs. Rodriguez walks past Karen on her way out, she smiles warmly, not with superiority or judgment, but with simple human warmth. Karen realizes with shocking clarity she just witnessed something she's never seen in her aggressive business world. Respect leading to mercy, honesty generating compassion, humility creating better outcomes than aggression ever could. Case number 4591, noise violation. 3 college students approach the bench, clearly nervous, but respectful, their youth and uncertainty written across their faces. Your Honor, we're here about the noise complaint at our apartment, the first student says. Tell me what happened. Judge Caprio gives them his complete attention, the same attention Karen demanded, but never earned through her aggressive approach. We had a party that got too loud. Our neighbor called the police and we were cited for disturbing the peace. We're really sorry about it. We were celebrating the end of midterms and we lost track of how loud we were getting. It won't happen again. Karen watches as Judge Caprio asks follow-up questions, listens to their explanations about academic stress and poor judgment, weighs their genuine remorse against their youthful mistake. I'm going to assign you 20 hours of community service at Providence Senior Center. You'll spend time helping elderly residents with technology, daily activities, and companionship. You'll learn that being good neighbors means considering how your actions affect others. The students accept gratefully, thanking Judge Caprio for giving them a constructive way to make amends, rather than simply punishing them. Karen sits in the back row, watching case after case unfold with the same pattern. Respect met with compassion, honesty rewarded with mercy, humility generating better outcomes than her aggressive tactics ever achieved in 20 years of business. Each case is a mirror held up to her own behavior, reflecting back the stark truth she's been avoiding her entire professional life. 1 hour later, Judge Frank Caprio's voice rings out across the courtroom. Ms. Whitfield, please approach the bench to address your original speeding citation. Karen stands, but the woman who approaches the bench bears little resemblance to the aggressive, entitled businesswoman who entered an hour ago. Gone is the impatient posture. Gone is the presumptuous familiarity. Gone is the aggressive edge that characterized every word she spoke. Ms. Whitfield, you've now observed how this court functions when participants show mutual respect. Are you ready to address your speeding citation appropriately? Yes, Your Honor. Karen's voice is quiet, respectful, stripped of the verbal aggression that defined her earlier performance. Tell me about the circumstances of your citation. Karen takes a breath, choosing her words with the care of someone who has finally learned that words have weight, that how you speak matters as much as what you say. Your Honor, I was driving 65 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour school zone on Elmwood Avenue. Officer Thompson stopped me and issued the citation. I was speeding because I was running late for a business appointment, and I prioritized my schedule over public safety. Judge Caprio notes the complete transformation in her approach, accepting responsibility rather than manufacturing excuses, acknowledging wrongdoing rather than shifting blame. I argued with Officer Thompson during the stop because I was frustrated about being late. I was disrespectful to him, just as I was initially disrespectful to you and to this court. I believed my time and my business were more important than traffic laws designed to protect children. Karen pauses, glancing back at the gallery where a few people still wait for their cases, each one a reminder of the community she disrupted through her selfish behavior. Your Honor, watching how you handled other cases today showed me something I've been missing in both my business and personal life. Her voice carries genuine revelation rather than calculated performance. When people feel respected and heard, they respond with honesty and cooperation. When they feel attacked or overwhelmed, they become defensive and dishonest. She continues, words coming faster now, as genuine insight pours out. I've spent 15 years in real estate, believing that aggressive tactics and verbal domination represented strength and effectiveness. But watching Mrs. Rodriguez, those students, and others today, I realized that my approach creates conflict instead of solving problems. Judge Caprio nods slowly, his experienced eyes recognizing genuine transformation rather than strategic performance. Your Honor, I violated the speed limit in a school zone, putting children's safety at risk because I thought my business appointment was more important than public safety. I deserve the full consequences of that choice. Karen's voice carries genuine remorse now, not the calculated apology of someone trying to manipulate outcomes, but the authentic regret of someone who has truly seen her behavior reflected back with devastating clarity. And I owe you, Officer Thompson, and everyone in this courtroom an apology for my disrespectful behavior. I came here expecting special treatment based on my business success, and tax payments. I interrupted you 11 times because I believed my voice deserved to be heard more than yours. I was wrong. Judge Frank Caprio studies Karen for a long moment. 4 decades of experience reading people, distinguishing genuine transformation from calculated performance, recognizing when someone has truly learned versus when they're simply saying what they think will help them escape consequences. Ms. Whitfield, you've demonstrated something remarkable today. You've shown that people can learn, can change their approach, and can choose respect over aggression when they understand the true consequences of their behavior. Karen nods, waiting respectfully, not interrupting, not pushing, simply listening with the humility of someone who has finally learned that silence can be more powerful than speech. Your original fine was $185 plus $50 in court costs. However, your willingness to learn from this experience, your genuine apology to this court, and your demonstrated transformation deserve recognition. He pauses. Judicial authority weighing justice against mercy, law against compassion, punishment against rehabilitation. Fine reduced to $100 plus court costs, payable within 90 days. Karen's eyes widen with surprised gratitude. Not entitlement this time, but genuine appreciation for mercy she didn't demand or expect. But, more importantly, Judge Caprio continues, you've learned something today that will serve you well beyond this courtroom, beyond your business, beyond this single moment. He stands, walking around to face Karen directly, not as judge to defendant now, but as one human being offering wisdom to another. You've learned that respect for others and respect for process creates better outcomes than aggressive tactics ever could. You've learned that listening generates more productive results than talking over people. You've learned that humility and honesty open doors that aggression and entitlement slam shut. Judge Caprio extends his hand to Karen, a gesture that carries more weight than any fine reduction, more significance than any legal ruling. Karen accepts the handshake with both hands, holding onto it like it contains the wisdom she's been seeking her entire professional life. Your Honor, this has been the most valuable business lesson I've ever received. Thank you for your patience, your wisdom, and your willingness to teach me rather than simply punish me. Ms. Whitfield, I hope you'll remember this lesson in your business dealings, your personal relationships, and your future interactions with anyone in a position of authority. The respect you show others will be reflected back to you. As Karen turns to leave the courtroom, she pauses near Officer Thompson, the man she argued with at the traffic stop, the officer whose authority she challenged with entitled aggression. Officer Thompson, I owe you an apology. My behavior during the traffic stop was disrespectful and inappropriate. You were doing your job, and I made it harder because I thought my schedule was more important than your authority or public safety. I'm sorry. Officer Thompson nods, his expression softening at this unexpected apology. Apology accepted, Ms. Whitfield. I hope you'll remember this lesson the next time you're in a school zone. Karen walks out of the courtroom, not with the aggressive confidence she entered with, but with the quiet dignity of someone who has learned that true strength comes not from overwhelming others, but from respecting them. Karen Whitfield's story ripples outward from that Providence courtroom like waves from a stone dropped in still water. The following week, she gathers her real estate office staff for a meeting unlike any she's conducted in 15 years of business. No aggressive sales tactics, no talking over people. Instead, she shares her courtroom experience with raw honesty. I learned something last week that's going to change how we do business, she tells her surprised team. I learned that respect generates better results than aggression. That listening creates more successful outcomes than talking over people. That humility and honesty open doors that entitlement slams shut. She implements new policies, mandatory pauses in meetings to ensure everyone's voice is heard, active listening training for all staff, a company culture that rewards collaboration over domination. Her business doesn't suffer from these changes. It thrives. Clients who previously found her aggressive tactics off-putting now recommend her services enthusiastically. Deals that might have fallen through due to her confrontational approach now close smoothly. Professional relationships that were strained by her dominance deepen into genuine partnerships. Karen frames Judge Caprio's reduced fine receipt and hangs it in her office, not as a reminder of punishment, but as a testament to the day she learned that strength comes from respect, not aggression. Judge Frank Caprio, for his part, continues dispensing justice tempered with compassion, maintaining order through respect rather than dominance alone. Karen's case becomes another example in his decades-long masterclass in balancing law with humanity. The goal isn't just to punish, he tells law students who study his courtroom philosophy. It's to teach, to show people a better way to interact with the world, with authority, with each other. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is give someone a mirror to see themselves clearly. Then give them a chance to choose who they want to become. Karen Whitfield walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, believing that aggressive tactics, verbal dominance, and entitled demands would get her what she wanted. She interrupted America's most patient judge 11 times. And those 11 interruptions became the turning point of her life, not through punishment, but through education, not through harsh consequences, but through being shown a better way to exist in the world. The lesson she learned that day resonates far beyond traffic citations and courtroom procedure. True strength isn't found in overwhelming others with your voice, but in respecting their right to be heard. Real power comes not from talking over people, but from listening to them. Genuine success emerges not from entitled demands, but from humble cooperation. In courtrooms, boardrooms, living rooms, and every space where human beings interact, respect for others creates better outcomes than aggressive tactics ever could. Karen Whitfield learned this the hard way, but she learned it. And in a Providence courtroom where justice meets mercy, where authority balances with compassion, and where one of America's most patient judges taught one of its most aggressive businesswomen the value of silence, everyone present witnessed proof that people can change, can learn, and can choose a better way forward. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop talking and start listening.